A message on climate change, a new one from Bill Gates that surprised a lot of people. In a new essay, Gates, who has long devoted a huge amount of time and money to awareness on climate change, he now argues more resources should be focused on poverty and hunger. He says that he doesn't think climate change will basically end humanity. With us now is CNN chief data analyst Harry Enton. And the reason this is interesting is because this does represent a shift in Bill Gates in his public speaking on climate change. And when you hear a shift on climate change, Harry, it made you think about maybe how people are looking at it differently.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will agree with Bill Gates that maybe this wouldn't be the end of humanity. And I think, we've been talking about climate change now for decades upon decades upon decades. And the worry in terms of climate change, simply put, hasn't shifted. It has not reached the majority of Americans. What are we talking about? Greatly worried about climate change. You go all the way back to 1989, it was 35%. 2000, 40%. 2020, 46%. And in 2025, look at that. It's 40%, the same number as we had 25 years ago back in 2000, and then only just 5 points higher than we had back in 1989. Really, we've just seen consistency on this issue. The bottom line is that the climate change message that folks who, of course, believe that climate change is real and is quite worrisome, simply put, has not really worked with the American people.
So greatly worried. You say greatly worried. I mean, so people say they're greatly worried, 40%, but how worried? Really? Is it the biggest thing they're worried about?
Yeah, it is not anywhere close.
It's not, okay? It's so not. So, couple things here. Number one, since 1989, we really haven't budged, okay? We don't really care that much more about climate change than we did in 1989. And, we're right back where we were in the year 2000. We've dropped 6 points since 2020. I mean, that was, 2020 when people were stuck at home and had nothing better to do than sit there and worry about climate change. And now it's come down 6 points. Well, 40%, right back where we were in the year 2000 and about where we were in 1989, not much higher. I have a feeling it's going to continue to move lower on those charts. Sorry to all the people that are so passionate. I don't know what Greta's going to do. I really don't know what that poor little girl is going to do now that she doesn't have this to crusade on. Oh, I guess she's got the PLO stuff, right? She's already going to find something. Anyway, let's keep going because it gets even worse, shall we say, for those that are so passionate about this because they're realizing they're all alone.
Close to being the biggest thing that people are worried about. What are we talking about here? Well, why don't we just talk about top issue facing the U.S., climate change? Well, I got some numbers for you on the screen right here. You don't have to be a mathematical genius to know that these numbers are not particularly high. Top issue facing the United States, climate change. It was 3% in 2021, 2% in average of polls in 2023, and this year the average of polls 2. It is very, very low on the list of priorities. I was trying to count it out in the Gallup poll, and basically it was so low down, I was counting all the different issues, almost lost track. It was like 15th or 20th. It was just very, very low down. So the bottom line is not only are we seeing that the number has not really moved over the last 36 years, but in terms of being the top issue, it simply put has not broken through. 2%, there are just a ton of things that rank way higher in the list of importance.
Even I can count to 2. In terms of how people feel it will impact them directly, what are you saying?
Yeah, I'll just note 2 things.
Only 2, who are the 2%? Okay, the 2% of Americans that think this is the number one issue. You must be living a pretty privileged life if this is your number one issue. Just saying, okay? You want to talk about the top 1 to 2% of Americans. Those are the people that the Democrats claim to hate, right? That they just want to tax and tax and tax some more. I bet you these are the only people that have the time and luxury to care about climate change being the top issue, for goodness sakes.
Number 1, your Harvard education paying off. But number 2 right here, look at this. Climate change effect on my home area will be harder to stay here. Look, in 2023, it was 23%. Look at where we are now, 17%. Now, these numbers are pretty comparable, but they're pretty comparable on the low side is what we're talking about here, is Americans simply put just don't think we'll have the type of impact that will really change their lives, which again goes back to the message that Bill Gates was saying, right? This is not something that's going to be devastating for humanity. It's something we can work our way out of. A lot of Americans agree. And even on this, we're talking about just 27% of Democrats who believe that climate change affecting my home area, it would be harder to stay here. So even on the left wing where you'd expect the climate change message to hit most close to home. It simply put is not reaching that type of level in terms of the doomsday scenario that Bill Gates is talking
Interesting. Whether or not he's following the science or public opinion, it does seem to be a shift here. Harriet, and great to see you.
Great to see you
very much.
In other words, no one cares. No one cares. Okay? CNN, you tried. I get it. You tried. New York Times, you tried. Universities, you tried. Elementary schools, you tried. And only 2% consider it to be the biggest issue. Didn't I hear like Kamala Harris at some point say it was the biggest issue? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did. Like, this is what the Democrats keep telling us over and over and over and over again. And then it turns out, when you look at the Palisades Parkways, you look at the fires, right, out in California, apparently they weren't actually doing the foresting that they should have done. They want to blame climate change, but there is some responsibility that should go with the state and the governor of California because, you need to clear the forest from time to time. They're very good at doing that in Canada. Had the same issue, I think it was up in Washington. Look, there's some sort of basic science that you can address to help manage this. And by the way, I'm just going to say this, Gavin Newsom, if you're that worried about climate change, which you purport to be, then why wouldn't you actually engage in some, deforestation and clearing of the forest in order to deal with this threat? I'm sorry, you're just going to sit there and just blame. We're tired of it, okay? Do something. Act like a conservative for a change. What do conservatives do? When the going gets tough, they get going.